because who knows, maybe Kristen will want to use it. I don't know. So you guys, I'm so excited. So today we have the lovely Kristen of ReThink Tailoring. And now in our group, right, we're called the Joyful Feminists. We're about wellness. We're about self-care. We're about intuition. And I have a tailor in here. And the reason why I have a tailor in here is because you guys are so creative. And Kristen is one of the most creative people I know. She is constantly creating. If she's not creating something in the tailoring world, she's creating something else. She's creating something. She has 2 small children. She's always creating something magnificent for them. And I met Kristen because Kristen happened to be my neighbor. And I'm very lucky because our kids are about the same age. And I got to interact with this lovely woman who's just like, she's so energetic, so fun, so excited about life, and all of that stuff comes through in her business. And so one of the things that's super cool about what Kristen's up to, and she's going to share it and really explain it in the detail that it deserves. But what's so cool about what Kristen's doing is that she's trying to help us revive the stuff that we already have in our closets. She's trying to help us continue to make fun fashion statements with what we already have, but, you know, not only keep the clothing alive instead of just putting it in a landfill, but allowing yourself to be playful and be fun. And on top of that, she loves to teach. And so she started creating these amazing classes that are online that will allow you to kind of tap into this energy that she already has of constantly creating and doing something exciting and experimenting and allowing things to be a mess and allowing things to be so in flow. And so I really just want you to be engaged in her energy and let her get you excited. And if possible, if you haven't sewn in a long time and sewing is something that you are passionate about or you want to get into, she's got something really cool and exciting that you can learn about. So Kristen, I am so excited to have you here. I am so excited for you to share with everyone. So can you just do a little introduction about who you are and what you are about?
Sure. First off, you made me blush. I forgot my blush, so you took care of it for me. Thank you for the kind words, Mary. That was awesome. So my name is Kristen. I am a professional upcycler and a professional tailor and also a clothing designer. So I like to have a crisscross of all of those and have a happy little marriage between those. I actually previously had a tailoring shop out in Washington, D.C., and our specialty was always upcycling. So people would bring in old forgotten items from the closet and we would revamp them and figure out what needs to be changed, whether you've lost a lot of weight or you've gained some weight and you want to figure out how to wear your favorite dress still, or you have your grandparents' hand-me-downs that you want to revamp so you can wear it in your day-to-day. I also do a lot of creative repair. And I took a pause from all of that when I had children and I invented resizable baby clothing. But I was getting that itch to get back into my eco-fashion realm of upcycling. And so I rebooted my tailoring business last summer. And then I was feeling like I wanted something more. And I was also feeling this change in the air of people wanting to learn to sew. And I wanted to be a part of that and help support that and show people how you can work with what you have. So that's when I made the decision to expand my business. And so we started the build out on January 1st and then worked our butts off and opened on March 14th and closed the next day. So, you know, I feel like a lot of my design mentality too is just rolling with it, and you never know, you know, what's going to come across your plate, especially because I work with garments 1 year or older. I like that I never know what to expect and what the next project is going to be. And I've had to use that creativity of like, well, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So let's just keep on moving. And we did, you know, started with doing stuff for masks for hospitals. And I recorded tutorials just to help support that, because I know that some people are more visual learners and maybe just a paper tutorial doesn't work well, but a video tutorial just helps it sink in. We ended up doing an emergency project for a nursing home that ended up with over 200 COVID-19 cases. And I was upcycling hospital gowns into isolation gowns for them. So that was a lot of late nights. So if you guys are in the neighborhood and saw the sewing lights or the lights on in the shop at maybe 2 a.m., that might be why. So, you know, just kind of hit the ground running, and then making masks for the communities. And then we were able to launch our classes, because again, the reason why I wanted to expand was I wanted to be able to teach people what I do. So with how many different types of projects I've upcycled and how many different types of projects I've creatively repaired, it seemed a little selfish to not share that. So I wanted to have a space where I could really just help teach people whatever they want to know about creative repair and playing with your wardrobe and working with what you have. So maybe it's not exactly what we had envisioned this year, but we're keeping on moving, and our in-person classes, instead of being like 6 to 10 people, we're doing our machine classes are just 2 people. And then my hand mending class is 3 people, but then I also brought that online. Like Mary said, I'm doing some online classes as well. We've just been trying to reach out to the community and just see how people are feeling. And a lot of people are being very conscious of not wanting to go into storefronts, which I wanted to help encourage. So our entire hand mending class, which is a 2-hour class, is now online, and we have pay what you can options, so that because everybody's circumstances are so different. But there's just a lot you can do just by hand with fixing up your wardrobe, and also like with visible mending, there's so many options that you can really have fun with things too. And I do have photos of examples. Mary, should I go ahead and go through some of those?
Yeah, I think that would be fun. This is
Okay.
like my favorite part. So if any of you are remotely interested in fashion, like some of her styles, like some of them are really going to speak to you, some of them might not, but that's what I just love about it, because like she just brings this fun flair.
Thank
So
you.
yay,
Okay.
I can't wait.
I'm going to go ahead and screen share. Okay. You guys got that? Good. Okay, so we have our practical things. This is just what I've dubbed as sock grafting. So we all have those holy socks that you can only have so many rags that are made out of old socks in your house. And at a certain point, it's like, let's just actually fix these. So this is just stuff that, like basically after learning a few basic stitches and knots, like you can actually be able to repair these. Now, there is also the option okay, there we go. So there's also, if you want to do like fancy sock fixing, these are things that I'm going to be doing in classes as well. I want to figure out the easiest way to kind of make your own loom. On this one, I used a pressing ham, so maybe that's not something that people have at home, but I want to see if we can sell some darning eggs at the shop too. And source those secondhand, so that we could get people, if they want to have fancy socks, that's an option too. But basically something like this, I just made my own little loom, and then I did my own weaving. So if you guys haven't already, if you just search the hashtag visible mending on Instagram or Pinterest, it is such a great rabbit hole to go down and just see what it looks like to just embrace the act of repair instead of hiding it. Because I know a lot of times when there's a hole, we feel like, oh, I need to hide that, or oh, I need to get rid of it. But there is this whole movement of just embracing it. And actually I'll show some examples. I have some in-person examples to show as well, but we'll keep on moving. So also just like really simple things to revitalize your wardrobe. If you lost a button and you don't have a matching one, you don't have to put matching ones back on. So on this coat, it was a pretty basic like peacoat button, but the person I fixed it for wanted to have a little bit of fun with buttons. So I put on like a bright red thread, and then stitched these buttons back on, and just kind of played with the geometrics of which buttons I used and the placement. And really, if you're working on your own wardrobe, you make your own rules. And I think that's also something, especially like females in the fashion industry, or females that shop. Like so many times there has been so many marketing dollars pushed into exactly how we're supposed to want to dress. Like we have all these rules that we were taught when we were younger. And I'm sure most people have been realizing that like those rules aren't necessarily relevant, especially in the current environmental climate, where like we need to be a little bit more thoughtful about the end of life of our garments. And so it's been really cool seeing how people have been letting go of these rules and making it more of their own, and just kind of personalizing their wardrobe a little bit more. So this
Kristen,
is, oh
can
yeah,
I ask you a question? So of course, one of the comments on here is, I'm definitely going to check out your classes. And then
Cool.
the question was, and I think you're going to have some great examples of what you would recommend, is that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
with baby clothes or kids clothes, you
Mm-hmm.
know, one of the biggest problems are stains.
Yeah.
And it's like really hard to toss something so wonderful, but like you can't donate it.
Yeah.
So what do you do with something that's stained?
So, well, can you guys still see the image now? Is my daughter on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so that's an example. Now, this was to actually patch a holy knee, which is guaranteed going to be in a wardrobe with kids. There's no way around it. I just cut apart an old t-shirt that was holy, and I made a little kitty head. Now, I could have also harvested that from a holy pair of leggings or a stained pair of leggings from one of my daughter's favorite pair of pants. She loved the fabric, but it was just so stained and we couldn't pass it on. But that's a way she gets very attached to her clothes. So being able to keep some of those still in her life has been fun for us. So sometimes I'll even cut apart like some unicorn, actually even just some unicorn pants I cut off into shorts because then she could wear them for longer. But then the legs that were left over, we could use to patch other things as well. Some things you could do is playing around with dyeing things too. Actually, I started doing a couple of free kids videos, kind of like fabric science, but also arts project, especially because I think a lot of people aren't getting a lot of art education now with distance learning. So Lenora and I actually, Lenora comes to the store with me every day. So she is my new assistant. She started kindergarten in the fall. So we have been making the most of it. But we did a fabric science video where it was the concept of borrowing dyes. So I had this hot pink silk that I wanted to wash really the wrong way, because normally you wouldn't machine wash silk, but I knew that we would be able to borrow dyes from the hot pink silk, and we used it to dye a scarf that was stained, and then so now Lenora has a pink scarf, and then this shirt, which I can show a little bit later as well, that we dyed pink, and then I'm going to revamp that. So you could also play around with dyeing things. I know RIT has a lot of different dyeing stuff, like they have like a liquid form of dyeing things. I just know you need to have it needs to be like a top loading washing machine to be able to do it. So you just kind of have to figure out how you could do it, or you could also dye it in a pot. You just got to be careful on the cleanup. Sometimes I will also carve stamps and then stamp over stains as a way to rescue things, or you could just buy some fun stamps, or even like something as simple as getting a little cutting knife and a little piece of rubber for stamping, and just making a circle. And then you can put polka dots. You can stamp polka dots with fabric ink. You just want to find a heat set ink, so that way after you stamp it, you can just iron it, or sometimes I'll iron it and then I'll also just throw it right into the dryer on high just to help set it. And that's actually what I do with old t-shirts. I stamp patterns on it, and I make them into drill bandana. So obviously I was washing those on warm or hot, and the ink still stayed on there.
That's all awesome recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any more questions, or should I just keep on cruising through?
No, go ahead and keep going.
Cool. So I'll back up on this rainbow fixer-upper. So this is going to look more like what people refer to as sashiko stitching. It's just using a basic running stitch over and over again, and it's just so beautiful, like what people have been able to make. So I'm going to also be doing I've been making some patches that I'm going to be launching this fall, and having it correspond with some follow-up classes to my mending class, of just like, here's the stitches to pull from that master class, and then here's how we can put it into practice in this project. And there's so much fun that can be done with like repairing jeans, and just, I'm really repairing anything. Is my internet still okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. My video is glitching out for a sec. Okay, so, well, we've got our kitty patches here, and this is just using a back stitch all by hand. And then there's also the option, if you have sweaters in your closet that have holes in them, there is an option to reweave them. This is a service that I will actually be launching again very soon. We're going to be launching our curbside repairs in the next week or two. I will also, in DC, I actually taught classes on reweaving. So if that's something you want to learn, that's all by hand. So I'll try both an in-person and an online version and just kind of figure it out. But just keep an eye out for if this is something you want to learn. That I will definitely be teaching this. And if it's something you want to learn sooner rather than later, you can feel free to email us too and just kind of like give us an elbow, because we're kind of looking for feedback of what people want to learn instead of just guessing and then like maybe classes don't fill. So if that's something you want to learn, or you could even go through, like we do private lessons as well. Our email address is info@rethinktailoring.com. info@rethinktailoring.com. Upcycling can also be a little fun and unexpected. So this suitcase was brought to us and we needed to figure out a way to repair it. And somebody had donated, I collect damaged jeans. So actually, if you have damaged jeans you don't want to throw away and don't know where to bring it, you can actually contact us for that as well. We did have a huge list of damaged garments we could collect before. Obviously, we haven't been able to do our unusable garment collection because we have to figure out how to make the rest of our business work too before we were collecting damaged things and I had a whole list of upcyclers I was going to give it to for free, but that's a lot of volunteer time on our part, and we got to figure out how to make our business sustainable first before we can do that. So I have a small list. Damaged jeans are on there, cotton fabrics for masks, cotton like sheets and stuff we can use too, but we'll be updating our list on that as well. So if you have things you want to clear out, we may have some things that we could use. But we just took some damaged jeans and actually hand stitched this on the suitcase to repair it. So this is a fun unexpected project, and it'll make it really easy for this person to find their suitcase whenever they end up going to the airport again. We also do denim darning. This is something that I have been doing for quite a while. I think in DC, I think I was the only person in town actually doing it. Otherwise, people had to send it to New York, which was just kind of shocking. But there's ways to do this where you make it more visible, or you can actually kind of hide it. So this is a repair that I did to fix the slice here. This is also a class I teach. So if that's something you want to learn, that's an option. I do an in-person version. I'll be adding another one to later this month. So if you want to catch on that, let me know. That one I max at 2 people, just so everybody can properly socially distance and keep everybody safe. But I will actually be bringing this into my online realm. And how that will work is I will gather information as to what kind of jeans you have. Like if something has a stretch in it, you want to make sure you get a stretch patch. And then like what color they are, so I can actually ship out the right kind of patch you'll need for the class. And then I can do like a knee version, a crotch version, and then a pocket version. So I'm excited to build those classes and get those up. And then this is actually using the same concept of darning, but now I've dubbed this thread painting. So actually this is a funny project. This person brought this shirt to me at the tailoring shop in Washington, DC. And I told him it was a lost cause initially, and he left and came back a year later and was like, hey, I have this shirt that I need fixing. Can you fix it? And I was like, oh, actually, yeah. So I had developed new techniques to repair. So I was actually able to do it. That's what I love about creative repair, is it gives me the opportunity to come up with new ways of fixing things. So I was able to back this with feasible interfacing and just recreate that pattern with thread. And this was actually his favorite shirt. So it meant that's why he kept it for a whole year and came back just to see.
It's such a great pattern. It's such a great pattern.
Thank you. And he had worn it to a party. And his buddy thought he was too buttoned up, so he thought he would help him. And instead of like, unbuttoning the button, it was like a Hulk smash moment. He was like, here, let me help you, and just ripped the buttonhole clear out of his shirt. So it was really fun to, any favorite garment that I can get up and running again is very, very rewarding, especially when it comes with a funny story. So I'm sure everybody probably has a ripped lining somewhere in your wardrobe. And I know I have a lot of requests coming in on like, can you replace a lining? Well, there's a lot that goes into replacing a lining, and there's still a lot of usable material there. So what I actually love to do is use scrap fabrics and just patch the lining. And that's something you could totally do on your own, whether it's by hand or by machine. So just giving you ideas that, you know, these things don't have to look the same way they came from the manufacturer. And sometimes doing things like this, like just patching a lining, is a little bit easier.
Kristen,
Now,
can I
oh, go
ask
ahead.
you a question with that?
Yeah.
So, as somebody who does not own like a sewing machine and
Uh-huh.
probably will either never own one or won't own one until I'm gifted one from my mother-in-law when she decides she really wants to give it up.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds like you're really, out of everything that you've shared so far, a lot of it can be hand mending, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
a lot. So you don't really need to make a huge investment in
Mm-mm.
order to be able to really revive a lot of things.
Precisely. So I like to say, if you want to learn sewing and you don't have a machine yet, before you invest in a machine, you should learn some hand sewing techniques, because there's a lot you can do by hand. And then you can make sure you like it before you hop in on the machine. Because I've heard so many stories of people like getting a machine and then getting a pattern that was also like too difficult for what they could handle. And then they got frustrated and then gave it up. But the nice thing about just connecting with a needle and thread is you feel like you have so much more control, because it's just you and your hands and this needle and thread and whatever you're working on. And if it looks funny, you just easily pull out the thread and try it again. So it's a nicer way to be a little bit more patient with yourself, because it can be a little bit more forgiving. And even if it doesn't look perfect, you learn something from that project and you carry it forward into the next one. So you always have to, when you're learning sewing, you have to let go of that perfectionist inside of you and just say, like, is this functional? Like, is this structurally sound? And will I wear it? And that has to be your main goal. And you have to understand that it will get better with every project you do. I'm originally a self-taught sewer, and I got my grandmother gave me her sewing machine when I was young. I think I was less than 10 years old, and she just taught me how to just turn on the machine and run it. I was totally terrified by the bobbin, because it was one that filled below the needle and there was no way to turn off the needle. So I was like, always found a way to not have to wind a bobbin. So I did do a lot of things by hand too, when I would get like too terrified of filling my bobbin, until my grandma came over and I could have her do it for me. But it was, you know, I had a lot of projects that looked really funny afterwards, but I just kept doing it because I enjoyed it, and I just let that go and was excited for the next project and what else I could find. And I grew up in a really small town, so fabric stores were 30 minutes away. Luckily, I was the youngest of three girls, so I had all these hand-me-downs that I could cut apart and experiment with. And then I realized, ooh, the thrift stores, this place full of materials for me to sew and design with. I would even get like shower curtains and like pair them together with old CDs and make the coolest shiny purses ever. And it's just, you know, it's just fun to be able to experiment, especially when you're working with old things. You don't really have much to lose if it was something that might have ended up just thrown away anyways. So it's just a nice way to just, you know, try out taking damaged things and experimenting with it a little bit. But absolutely, on this specific piece, anywhere I machine stitch totally could have been sewn with either a whip stitch or a slip stitch, and both of which I actually go through in my mending class. Eventually, we will also be doing, so part of ReThink Tailoring and Sewing Lounge is technically the name of the store. So eventually, once we all get past the current state of affairs and we can all be together again, which I know will happen, one of the main parts of our business was going to be the sewing lounge aspect. So eventually we will do our assisted sewing lounge, where you can pay by the hour and use our equipment, and we are there to answer questions. So it's not a private lesson, we're all working together, but we're there to give some advice, and then you have some guidance there as well. But again, like, I can also do private lessons and stuff like that too. And if you are ready for a machine, we actually do a Meet Your Machine class that is a private lesson class. And it's just a one-on-one. That's actually with Laura. She used to work at Sewtropolis, and like, it's just really fun hearing her talk about sewing machines, because she has met so many sewing machines in her life, and it's really fun to hear her geek out a little bit. But she helps you become better acquainted with your machine. And if we get a little bit of information before the class, and actually we do ask for the machine and the manual, and she'll research your machine ahead of time, and then she'll figure out what features she's really excited about from the machine, and then she gets to show you, like, here's these other things your machine can do. And if we know, like, okay, somebody needs help learning how to clean their machine, we can teach them that. Or they're having tension issues, Laura will work them through how to fix that, and just like empower them to, when you don't know an answer, like, where do we look? We look in the manual and figure out these things. And, oh, have you tried this stitch for this kind of project? Did you know your machine does this? And it's really fun to hear, because every Meet Your Machine class is a little bit different, because Laura really customizes it to the needs of the student. So that was a very long answer.
So exciting. Well, all of it's really good, but that sounds so fun.
Yeah.
Want to know how to use your specific machine, and then you have somebody who's like geeks out. That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, we love what we do, and we're not really afraid to be dorks about it, because we want to enable other people to geek out about it just as much. But I feel like life's too short to not embrace fully what you love, and that's really this business is so much a direct extension of me. And like, if you follow us on social media, you'll notice, like, I'm a very open book, and I try to be very transparent. And also, I am also a mom too. So there are good days, there are bad days. There are days where I need sewing for my therapy. And it's just nice to keep my hands busy and feel like I can still get something done today, even if it's a small project. I feel like now, especially, in the fall, we may all need a little bit of sewing therapy and concentrating on fixing the things that we can fix, no matter how today turns out. So quick little pitch. I hope everybody votes today. We'll see how things go. So anyways, let's bring it back to more things that you can do in your wardrobe. So this was a stained sweater that came into us, and then the elbows were worn out. So I did a little collab with a crochet artist that she made these little elbow patches that I put on there. And then I actually painted this sweater. So I went for it. I have a little roller, and I used that heat set ink I was talking about, and I made this distressed sweater. And then I got to play off of, like, if you look at the bottom where the ribbing is and how that roller brought out that texture, this was actually a new thing for me that I have never done. And it gave me a lot of joy to just throw myself into a project like this. And again, it was already stained, it had holes in it, so I didn't have a lot to lose. So even if it didn't work out, like, I could still cut it apart and use it for elbow patches on something, because the other side was still ivory. So, I was totally up for just like throwing myself in and seeing what happens. There's also simple alterations you can do, where just hemming a longer dress into a shorter dress. And actually this one, I used the scrap and made her daughter a matching skirt for her recital that she was in. So there's a lot of fun things you can do just with extra fabrics. And there are many times where for me and my daughter, I hem something into a mod, like very mini dress, and then I take the scrap and make my daughter a matching skirt. And it's just like fun special things you can do. This skirt I also made resizable, because of my resizable kids clothing line. It's just nice to make things so that they'll grow with your kiddos. But with this one, I will actually be doing more alterations classes too. But one of the classes I want to do is how to hem something. And then also taking into account, like, what to do about a butt, because maybe it needs to be a little bit longer back there. And then the hemming stitch I actually go through in my hand mending class. So the whip stitch is what I actually use for hemming. So this is actually a project that could be done with a needle, thread, an iron, and a ruler and scissors. So this, aside from the kids skirt, that one would be better with a machine. But hemming a skirt, or hemming like a dress into a shorter dress, or hemming up a skirt or something, that could actually all be done by hand. So another example of old things that you like the fabric on, this was actually, I'll show you the next image. This was a polyester dress that just had like a ruffle and like a bow and then a handkerchief hem with an extra ruffle on the bottom. And this was just an unwanted secondhand dress that I'm actually converting the top into this really cute little wrap shirt. That'll be fun for layering, but then the rest of it, I actually cut into 1-inch strips and then serged them all together. Now, obviously that's a special equipment you need, but if you just used like a zigzag stitch, if you have a machine stitch, then you can actually create your own textile. From something like, especially with polyester, polyester is actually the same thing as PETE1 water bottles. So if you think of how well water bottles do in the trash heaps and how quickly they deteriorate, you can imagine that all of those polyester pieces that get thrown away are going to create a big problem for us because they're not going to break down, and we don't have easy access to recycling these things as we should. So this is actually me recycling it into more of a classic piece that I would wear into a classic silhouette. Because the nice thing about polyester is that it lasts, and that, you know, that fabric is made to last. So if we rethink the idea of polyester, instead of it's so cheap to make, let's make cheap garments that are super trendy and don't have enough seam allowance, so they're going to fall apart after a couple months of wear, so the people have to come back and rebuy it. Instead, if we rethink that idea, and when I say we, it's really, you know, talking to the fashion people up above that make the rules and aren't thinking about the end of life of these garments. If they were instead making classic pieces out of polyester that were made to last, in style-wise and construction-wise, that would be how polyester should be used. So I know, like, especially with learning more about microfibers, for me, I don't buy new polyester, but if it was already created, I feel like it's also equally as bad to just waste it and have it thrown away, where it's nice to just actually upcycle those. And it's a fun challenge to figure out ways to upcycle polyester in a way that's still comfortable, because polyester, you know, if you're sweaty, then it's not always the most comfortable. So there's totally ways to still make it comfortable, but you just have to rethink it a little bit. There are also the options of, if a really fun dress doesn't fit, this black panel is actually a stretchy panel, and I worked with this client to let this dress out 11 inches, I think. So there's totally ways. This is probably the biggest panel that I'd let out, but it actually worked really, really well for her, and she could wear it dancing, which I was really excited about. But you know, there's also creative ways, like even adding an exposed metal zipper on the back. Sometimes you can let out that dress an inch, and sometimes that's enough to get you wearing it again. But I do love coming up with creative ways to let out a favorite piece. Whether it's adding a design feature somewhere, like a new accent fabric, and making it part of the design that you get to let it out. So there's even options there that something might not necessarily be a lost cause. And this is something that I'll eventually be able to do in tailoring again, but this is something I could also do as like a private lesson as well. Or I do Zoom private lessons, like Zoom consults too. So if you want to pick my brain, that's also an option. Even if it's just for like a short 15-minute consult, if that's all you need, then I'm up for that as well. So this is something that I like. So I am a clothing designer, as I said earlier, and it's really fun for me to take old things and figure out ways to make it a design that doesn't necessarily like scream upcycled, because a lot of times people think of like upcycling and as like being crafty, and I don't believe that it needs to be. I think that there are ways to make some really fun, unique designs by, you know, just cutting apart old things. And actually this one I have hanging behind, oh wait, I'm still on present mode, I'll show you that one later. Oh, and this is actually another denim top. So this is old jeans that had been donated, and I made a just really fun, actually reversible upcycled top.
I
So
can't
again,
stand it. I saw this when she posted it on Instagram, and I was like, I want it now. I want
yeah,
it
that one actually
now.
that sold at our grand opening, our one day we were open to the public. So that was I'm glad it has a happy home. I have I'll show you the other denim top too behind me in a little bit once I'm done presenting, because I wanted to make another upcycled denim top. But it's really fun to play with the different colors in denim, because denim is a really beautiful textile, and it's really beautiful how it's woven together with all these different colors of threads, and just seeing how it wears in. Like the top right photo with me with my hands on my hips, you'll even see like a little sunburst for where like I think it was where the knee was, and that it's really fun to just showcase like how jeans wear in, and having that a little bit of that history there. It just makes it more interesting and more fun. There's also, so creative repair is just really fun for me to do. This client had gone to a dance, and as she referred to it, she hulked out of her dress, which I am going to carry that statement with me for the rest of my life because I love it so much. But she wanted to see if there was a way that I could fix it so she could wear it to a wedding. And so this one, I took the sleeves, and then we were able to make little cap sleeves, but I used the material on the sleeves to actually fill in the missing gaps in the underarms. So when I was referring to the sock grafting, this is the same concept where I'm grafting that lace and like layering it on to complete the missing fabric. So that was really fun to figure out how to stabilize this. And it was designed to be off shoulder, which was really not great. Like nobody was ever meant to like do anything but maybe drink like a cup of tea in this dress. And I wanted to make it, my goal was to get it back to her in an even better state than when it got to her, so she could actually dance in it, because that was practical for her lifestyle. And also just, nowadays we live our lives a little bit differently. So I want people to be able to move around in their clothes. So having those sleeves off and bringing it up so it wasn't off the shoulders made a huge difference just structurally. And then there's also those sentimental pieces. So this is my last one I'm going to show, and then I can stop presenting. But this client in DC had come to me. This was her grandfather's blazer, and he had passed away, and she wanted something made for his memorial. So this was like my first question was just figuring out what are you going to wear? Like if you're going to have this in your wardrobe, and if we're going to put this love and thought into this garment, how are you going to wear it? And we figured out that she would wear a vest. And so it was quite large on her, as you can tell. So this, I broke basically every single tailoring rule in this one to make this vest. But if you notice, like I brought up the front so it could be at a better spot. That button would hit at her true waist. And if you look at the lower right-hand corner, that crossover there is actually the old collar. And I made that part of a design feature to just create a little interest on the back, where I created this little crossover. But it was also problem solving too, because I needed that collar to go somewhere, and it was just going to be forcing it too much to try to make it look like a normal collar. So it's fun to be able to just like let the garment talk to you a little bit, and like, okay, I'm not going to force this, so let's see what else can kind of evolve out of it. This was definitely a lot of this is me working with my mannequin and just like draping and just seeing what comes out of it. So obviously that's not something you're going to bite off right away when you're learning to sew, but just know that like in the future, once you get more practice, like if you may end up being more of a designer that likes to treat it more like sculpture, that you can work on a dress form, and that could be really fun for you to work with. So just, showing a spectrum of things that can be done. And actually I used the sleeves on this to make this little peplum flare on the back of this vest. So, okay. I'm gonna stop sharing. Can you guys see me again?
Yes, we can.
I'll show you the denim top behind me. So somebody donated these jeans in this bright blue. It was so bright, and it was clearly somebody's paint jeans. So just like their old work jeans. Here, I'm going to maximize this because my brain is falling apart for where I should be showing this. So if you can see, can you guys see that? The paint marks there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to figure out a way to play off the colors, because this was like, a lot of the jeans was this color, and then it was this fade, it was just so dramatic. But the nice thing about piecing it together like this, so it's more like a color blocking, then it actually brings out this dramatic flair in like a way that is really, really satisfying to see. And it was fun to, like, you know, this part was darker but still had the paint on it, and then it gradiated into the front. So this is just a really fun piece for me to play on with like the colors and the variations, you know, just playing with the pockets on the back too.
Yeah. No, I love it. And one of the things that was always fun to see Kristen in is because she was, you know, breastfeeding around the same time I'm breastfeeding. And so she'd always be like, I just wanted something new. And then she'd have like a new shirt, and then she'd have like a fun zipper right at the top. And then, you know, but it was always something more interesting than the regular run of the mill stuff that you could find. And I just always I've always enjoyed fashion, and I've
Mhm.
always wanted to learn how to sew and make my own
Yeah.
clothes. And so I've always just loved watching her and what she does.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, really just adding a zipper to the center front was what I found to be the easiest thing for even just converting your old clothes into something with a zipper, so that, you know, zippers are fun. Like, it's not like you're going to get sick of a zipper, as long as you pick a fun one. Like, then when you're not breastfeeding, you still have a cool top. So actually this top, this is a piece that I had designed too, especially like, because maybe I didn't want things to be super form-fitting after having 2 kids. And this was a piece that my other pieces, this is really the only one that ended up without a zipper, because this is my first version of it, and I tweaked my pattern after that. But I just added a zipper, and then it was just so easy to zip and then feed the baby. And then I still wear these garments every day, especially having cotton garments that I can machine wash regularly with current atmosphere, gestures broadly. That's been really handy to just have things that can easily be machine washed. Are there any more? Oh, are you on mute?
I muted myself. So, you know, one of the other things that I would love for you to speak about, just really off the cuff, like nothing fancy, but I think a lot of us as women who are trying to get more connected to ourselves,
Mhm.
one of the things is about connecting to our creativity. And so I would love to just hear, even though, you know, obviously sewing for you is beyond a passion,
Mhm.
creating something totally different than what you fully see already is a passion for you. But I
Yeah.
see you be creative in so many different aspects of your life, right? With your kids, just even in your home, just how you really just even dress yourself, right? She's got the adorable little hat on right now, you know, like her style is very unique and very her own. And so what I want to explore as a group is, how do we become more creative so that we can connect more deeply to ourselves? And, you know, maybe sewing isn't the thing, and then you will bring your stuff to ReThink or whatever, right? But how do you feel like you are able to just operate in the world in this creative way? Like, what gets you going and inspires you so that you can be more playful and have more fun in your life? Because I feel like that is one of the things that I love so much about you, is that
Oh,
you
thank you.
really just dive right in and get going. So could you just share a little bit about your process of living a creative life?
Sure. Let me start by saying that I didn't realize until like the last 10 years that I was an artist. Um, I always thought of like, oh, this is a specific idea of what art needs to be. And it, even while I was upcycling as a kid, like I really enjoyed it when I did it. Especially when I didn't have to like spend a lot of money doing it and there wasn't that pressure there. It was something I always enjoyed, but I didn't really share a lot with people. And again, like I just didn't have a lot of self-confidence to go with it, to understand that I was an artist. And I guess I'm trying to think of when that turning point was for me. So I was self-taught for a really long time, and when you're self-taught, sometimes things take like 3 or 4 times as long. So I did eventually go to sewing school at MCTC and learn the standard ways of making things, and it just sped up my production. And I did 2 fashion shows during my time there, and one ended up being a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk fashion show. And I was the only one that took that very literally. So when I was going around, I was literally like, oh, there's a piece of a snow fence that I found on the ground. Oh, right. My husband thought I was crazy. It was fine. He understood later once he saw it all together. But I was literally like grabbing the things from the ground that I found, like, this will be great. And then like collecting like old water bottles and old shredded CDs that I melted into this jacket with using parchment paper. And like, that was the time where I just had this explosion of ideas, because the show I was doing was so outrageous that like people were like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's fine. So I just experimented, and I had a theme. And so I could just blame that theme, and it was totally my enabler. And at that time, I had been let go from my job because they were cutting staff, and I was the last one in. And so I was on unemployment. So I was like, okay, I have just enough to get by. I'm going to like push myself to like do this project. And I always had a hard time with like meeting timelines too. And I feel like it just sucked so much creativity out of it, but I was able to focus on it. And for me, I proved something to myself that like, oh my gosh, when I allow myself the time and the space, I can create stuff that I never knew I could create. And I am actually going to share this fashion show hopefully in the next month on my page too. But I figured out ways to iron plastic bags with parchment bags to basically make a vinyl that I could sew through. And I basically created a sewn textile that I made this vest out of, and I made like these high leg boots and made a giant circle cage skirt. And then I went to Axeman about vinyl and made a vinyl like corset all cut out of 1-inch strips that was just like, I don't even know where all of these ideas came from. It just kind of like, I just let it happen. And it was the first time I really let that happen. And for me, that was my turning point. And then after that, I kind of accidentally fell into the tailoring world just by people wanting tailoring done. But then that was when I embraced like, okay, this felt so good. I don't have to do anything that extreme, but I can take old throwaway things and I can play with them. And I'd always been doing that as a kid. But when I was going to school at MCTC, that's when I learned about PETE1 water bottles and polyester being the same thing. And that's when I made my stubborn decision that I would only be doing upcycling. And for me, because you never know what you're going to come across with upcycling, it just keeps it fresh, and it keeps it exciting for me. But I know that just with creativity, like creativity comes in so many ways, shapes, and forms. And I know it's so easy to look at what everybody else is doing and be like, but it's not that good. And it doesn't matter, because the main thing about art is you just got to make something. You just got to start somewhere. And, my early projects were not great, but I loved doing them. And that was the biggest takeaway. That was the most important thing, is that I love doing it. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. I didn't have to show anybody. Like, it was for me. So I think, like, giving yourself that time, and I feel like that goes into self-care, because if you're feeling like you're having that itch to do a little creative project, you can start small and you can do little things, and you have to be patient with yourself, because it's not going to be perfect right away. And if it is, good job for you. That's awesome. But it's likely not going to be perfect right away, and that's okay. And sometimes those imperfections, like if you see hand sewn garments at the thrift store, those are the ones I'm so excited about, because I'm like, oh, I love that it's not perfect, because I know exactly the mood that they were in. They're like, oh, I just need to get this thing done. I don't know why I bit off this project, but I'm just doing it. I'm just going to glue the rest of it together. And even though I end up having to fix them with tailoring, I still secretly, I mean, not secretly, because I just told you, I love seeing those little storybooks into everybody's process, because we're all people and we all like hit a wall. We're like, what have I done? And you just keep going, and you just, I don't know, it's just having fun with it. But I think growing up in a small town, I didn't quite fit in all the time. And I did definitely dress crazy. I was definitely not, I didn't have a big fan club of like how I dressed. And then the year after high school, I moved abroad, and I tried to, for a whole year, dress more normal. And that totally backfired, because even my version of normal was not, well received, and it would have been better for me to just be myself. And that was a hard year for me to get to know myself and just feel what that feeling is like when I don't honor that part of myself. So when I came back to the States, and I have to say, I loved my year abroad. It was so eye-opening for me in so many ways. But those like early years of like get those harsh realities of getting to know yourself come with some hard lessons. So when I came back, it was like slingshotting back home into my true self of like, I can't try to live my life making everybody else happy. I need to make myself happy. And if that means that I'm going to wear 5 different patterns at once and crazy hats and like crazy jewelry, then that's how it's going to be, because life is way too short to try to be somebody else and fit into somebody else's box. And the more people that can just let go of those expectations and be themselves and find the things that make them happy, it's better for everybody. And I know, when there's always going to be those people that say something bad about it. And that's because of them. That's because they maybe wish that they could have that freedom of expression too, or they feel threatened by that, but it's always, that's their thing. But once you can really just embrace yourself, and really this business was a culmination of me just like, this is who I am. And honestly, last year, last year at this time, I was doing great. But last year, at the beginning of the year, I was not in a great space, because my son didn't sleep for about a year. And I wish that was an exaggeration. He eventually got tubes put in. But having like sleep deprivation for that much time, I didn't have time to create for a whole year. And I adore my son. I have no regrets about any of that experience, because what it showed me is that how strong I can be. And getting through that, it was like, I know so much more my limits now, and really what I can accomplish. And it just opened my eyes even a little bit more about my strengths and my weaknesses, and being able to be a little bit more honest with myself about those. So last summer I had this explosion of creativity, and then after that I realized like I was missing being able to focus that energy. And some people do well with just the constant like explosion outbursts of creativity, and I realized I do best when I can focus. And then I realized I missed owning my own business, which I like, as soon as I accepted that, I'm like, I'm a crazy person, but I miss it. And then it was just, as soon as I got that back in my head that I got to reboot, rethink, then it was just, at that point, it's like, I just wanted to embrace me. And that's, part of ReThink is really embracing that mission that feels right to me. Even though some people probably think that I'm kind of crazy for only working on garments that are 1 year or older. And that's actually part of ReThink Tailoring, is I only work on older garments. I don't work on things that come brand new from the store, because that's just not part of my mission. I don't pass judgment on people buying new clothes, but what I love to work on is old forgotten items from the closet, or thrift store finds, or family heirlooms. So for me, if I'm going to be back in the business world, I want to work on the things that I love most and that nobody else is really providing. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, I think it definitely did. And I think that all of us need to be able to be creative in whatever sense that is. And what I really appreciate is that none of us have to be some high artist who's been like critically acclaimed to consider ourselves to be creative people.
Yep.
And I think that a lot of us growing up, we were pigeonholed and told, you know, you are either the sports person, you are the music person, you are, you know, you get put in your box because of what you seemingly excel at that age. And then you think, oh, I can't be an artist. Like my siblings are all very creative individuals. They're very like artists, like in the way of pen and paper, and can create something right there.
Mm-hmm.
One of my best friends is an artist, and you think of it because of they're creating something that you can visually see. And I think you're right. A lot of people don't really think sometimes how the creative process of somebody when they're creating fashion, when they're creating what you're going to wear, and whether you're going to call it like high fashion or what, it doesn't really matter. It's still a piece of art. And so I really appreciate you just saying, you know, I had to come to terms with the fact that the way I do things is differently, and that's what makes me me. And being that way is what brings more inspiration. And that's what we all need in our everyday life. So I think you answered it. So
Okay.
what I'd like to do before we wrap up is I'd love it if you would share, like, so you guys, even if you aren't around here, if you're not in Minnesota, you don't have the luxury of walking down to the corner that I do and be able to go to this little shop, you can look online, and she has got masks. They're reversible masks, and then she's got these other pieces that she
I
has
also
on
have
there.
my
Yeah.
new shiny masks. I was having rough times with a neighbor, and I needed to have some sewing therapy to help work my way through it. So this was, sometimes I have to throw myself into a little bit of sewing therapy and have to make really flamboyant things to just make the world good and let go of the things that I
Yeah.
can't fix. So
And so you guys, you can still get, you know, a piece of this if you're interested. Like she still does have like the resizable kids, like baby to year 3, you know, so there's a lot out there. If you check out the rethinktailoring.com website, she's got stuff. She's got a really fun Instagram. She always got some fun stuff out there. And then she's got these classes for those of you who are interested in learning how to sew or reigniting your interest and passion for sewing. So I really would encourage you to check it out if you are interested. And have I forgotten anything?
so the online shop, you can just go to shop.rethinktailoring.com. And that I will be adding the resizable baby clothes to, I had that on my Etsy before, so I'm going to be gravitating that over to the Rethink shop, especially before the holidays. Then we have the masks. We'll be loading up some locally made upcycled jewelry items for the holidays as well. And then actually in the online shop too is where you can register for that online class. So there is the pay what you can option there. I just wanted to have a range there. And then once you sign up for that, then I have both a right-handed and a left-handed version because I feel like lefties have been left out. So I wanted to honor them. So I made 2 totally different versions of the class, which I realized afterwards, like, oh, this is a lot of work. I'm making 2 feature films, basically. But we got through, and now the other classes after that will be much smaller. And the nice thing about that class is that you don't have to do it all at once, even though it's a 2-hour class. I have in the description, there are hyperlinks. So if you're like, I only want to do 2 sections today, and then you can come back later and just click in, okay, here, I'm going to start with the back stitch today. You click there and it brings you right into the video. And then you can always come back whenever you want a refresher, and you have those hyperlinks in the description to make it really easy. Because I understand that having like 2 hours for a class right now, maybe not super practical, especially if you have kids, but you're like, oh, I'm going to carve out 20 minutes of like learning time today. And then you can, hands-on, like it actually comes with a kit. So it's actually a sew along, and we sew through the kit to learn all the stitches and practice the stitches. And then I will also be selling like patches and stuff too. So this is going to be an add-on class with some patches and different samples I made. And then this is by a local artist that did this embroidery.
Those are beautiful.
So these will be in the online shop soon. And then this is actually by Mesame Design. She actually hand weaves these. And this is easy ways. You could just stitch these on by hand. to cover up a hole, but in a really fun way. And this is actually the little kit that comes with, but I wanted to figure out a cute way. So this is just old fabrics that I have them ready to go. Just, everybody needs a little joy sent in the mail. So this will also be good for gifts too. So if you know somebody that wants to learn some hand stitching, they just look really fun too. We do have some in-person classes. So if you go to rethinktailoring.com, we have a class calendar on there. Otherwise, there's also in the online shop, there is an area with classes on there too. The place I update the most is probably Instagram. I've been doing a lot more free videos on Instagram TV, talking through like projects and how I'm making my decisions. And sometimes I let people help me like co-design a garment if I need to make decisions. I needed that like kind of connection with people. So it feels good to start getting the page back to there instead of just masks all the time. Because for a while that was what we were. But that's, even though I make all of my masks from surplus and secondhand fabrics, so they are actually made locally, and they're all made sustainably and eco-friendly. It's still nice to get back more to my mission and teaching others. So, and then again, email info@rethinktailoring.com if you want more information about private lessons via Zoom or even in person.
Wonderful. So I've placed all of that in our group here, so you should be able to access all of those. And if you have any questions, Kristen currently is in our group. She's a busy lady, so if you tag her and ask her a question, she may be able to get back to you, but of course, don't count on it necessarily 100%. Definitely reach out to the info@ReThink.
Or DM on Instagram or on Facebook will work too. For some reason, the regular Facebook notifications have not been very reliable, but direct messages on @ReThink Tailoring on both Facebook and Instagram work really well too. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's okay. So thank you so much, Kristen, for sharing with us.
Of course.
So wonderful to be with you. And hopefully, you've inspired some people to get back into sewing or to bring something else that they were excited about to do, whether it's creatively or, even physically. That would be, a wonderful thing from this segment. So thank you so much for your time and your wonderful energy. So
Of course.
I'm going to stop our live on Facebook. Bye, guys.
Thanks for having me. Bye.